I know, lots of my viewers love Linux. But you know what? Ignoring Microsoft is a big mistake, especially if you work in IT. I've already told you why you need to know about Linux. Now I'm going to tell you why you can't afford to ignore Microsoft either, from the perspective of an IT professional. Welcome back to the Pro Tech Show. As I said in the last video, I'm not a Linux fanboy, I'm not a Windows fanboy, I'm a right tool for the job guy. As such, my reasons may vary a little from the usual fanatical ranting you'll tend to hear on the internet. For example, I'm not going to tell you that Windows is a lot easier to install, because if you can install Windows, you can install most major Linux distributions too. Regardless of your preferred operating system, I'm going to give you 5 reasons you need to care about Microsoft from the perspective of an IT professional. And one bonus reason that's more for fun. The first reason is productivity. I'm not saying you can't be productive in another operating system, but Microsoft really have the whole business productivity thing nailed. Look at the standard business toolset with SharePoint, Exchange, Teams, OneDrive, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Planner, Project, the bazillions of Microsoft 365 cloud services, all tightly integrated with the traditional Microsoft Office application suite and the Windows operating system itself. You can find alternatives for each of these that may be better in a standalone capacity, but what Microsoft have done is integrate the entire stack into an ecosystem that is greater than the sum of its parts. Nobody else comes close to that. Any that I've used have ended up as a pale imitation, for the simple fact that they're made up of separate packages that weren't designed with a single cohesive vision in mind. Google Workspace is probably the most comprehensive alternative in the market, but they're completely missing the application side of things and a full-fat operating system. Don't get me wrong, some of the applications in Microsoft Stack are great, others are complete garbage, but there's nowhere else you can go and buy a single license to give you everything. Reason number 2. Everybody uses it. Okay, not everybody, but a lot of people. You might have implemented a completely Microsoft-free workflow, but that puts you in the minority. And as soon as you step outside your little bubble, there's Microsoft. Why does this matter to you? Well, unless you work in total isolation, there's a good chance you're going to have to interact with a Microsoft application or data that has been created using a Microsoft application. If you're the oddball who uses something else, then people are going to expect you to be the one to do any necessary translation. At an individual level, this is okay, but when you scale it out to a company full of people who may struggle to consume or share information with third parties, then it can become problematic. You can open a Microsoft Word document in pretty much anything these days, but there's always some little issue that turns up eventually. Like someone external emails you an Excel spreadsheet with an unsupported formula. I've worked with a few companies that have tried to ditch Microsoft Office. All of them ended up going back because, although LibreOffice might have covered 99% of the use cases, that 1% just was too much hassle and they struggled to work around it. Reason 3 is kind of related to the last one. That is the availability of skills and the demand for those skills. Almost everybody uses Microsoft, which means that almost every company needs people who can support Microsoft's products. If you're trying to make your way into a career in IT, then that's an important consideration. Maybe you don't want to work on Microsoft technology, you want to be a Linux server admin. Fine, that's a noble goal. But you might struggle to get a sysadmin job with no experience. For a lot of people, the way in is desktop support, then they move on to the server side of things. What are the desktops running? Probably Windows. So if you want to start a career in IT, even if your ultimate goal is Linux, you should learn how to support Windows. If you're sat on the other side of the hiring table, you need to consider not just the systems that you're putting in place, but how you're going to support them. That depends a lot on your budget and where you're located, of course. But regardless, the chances are that if you're looking to recruit staff, there'll be more who know how to support Windows than Linux. And the Windows guys probably know a good chunk of that whole Microsoft stack we mentioned previously too, because Microsoft environments tend to be pretty similar. Next reason, number 4. Hybrid cloud. Microsoft are not leaders in cloud, that's Amazon, they're second place. When it comes to hybrid cloud though, Microsoft are really running at full steam. They started off like a lot of vendors, trying to ram every customer into the crowd to wring every last penny out of them by getting them signed up for that sweet recurring revenue. Except that's often a terrible idea that leads to spiraling costs and poor performance. So most people said, no. We'll use a cloud where it makes sense. where we can save on infrastructure and support costs or gain a tangible improvement to business agility. Where it doesn't make sense, we're sticking with what we've got, thanks. This wasn't Microsoft's plan, but it played their strengths incredibly well. They realised their dream of 100% cloud wasn't happening, and most customers preferred a hybrid approach to get the best of both worlds. They also realised that, hey, we make both parts of this equation. We make the cloud services in Azure, and we make the on-premises server applications and operating systems. We should join these things up. And this is where Microsoft actually have an advantage over Amazon. Amazon can make great cloud services. They can build on-premises integrations too. Microsoft are building cloud integrations directly into the on-premises server products that people are already using. It's not an add-on, it's native integration. In a lot of cases, expanding into the cloud is just a click away with the functionality built right in. Hybrid Cloud's blended approach suits a lot of businesses much better than a black and white cloud or nothing, and Microsoft have joined the dots. Reason 5. It works the way you expect it to work. Windows is the standard, it's what most software people use is built for, so it's usually the path of least resistance. You can argue Apple stuff does a better job of just working, but that's only true as long as you agree never to deviate away from the way Apple wants you to do things. Don't you think of holding that iPhone wrong, mister! Apple support is getting a lot better these days, particularly with a lot of software going web-based and into mobile apps, but telling people they can't do something because it just doesn't work on a Mac, that's still a thing. As for Linux, oh boy. You've gotta love Linux to use it on the desktop. Here's an example that's close to home. All of the software I use to make these videos works on Linux. I don't use it on Linux. The main package I use is DaVinci Resolve. Here's how it works in Windows. Install Resolve, import your media, and you're good to go. Here's how it works in Linux. Install Resolve. Resolve doesn't open because it doesn't recognize the graphics card. Realize AMD didn't include OpenCL support in their normal Linux drivers, and you need the Pro drivers even though it's not a Pro card, and you need to do a custom install to get the OpenCL bits out of those Pro drivers. Resolve still won't open because it still doesn't recognize the graphics card. Realize that the implementation of OpenCL and AMD's drivers changed at some point, and Resolve only works with the old one, so start working back, trying different versions until you come to the latest one that was compatible. Resolve opens! It can't read the media, because Linux, codecs, and licensing. Upgrade to Resolve Studio and use a hardware decoder. Now it can import the videos, but the audio doesn't play, because Linux, codecs, and licensing. Transcode your media into something that doesn't have any licensing issues, and now you're good to go. The problem is solvable. Once you've got Resolve working on Linux, it can scale its performance further than either Windows or Mac can, so there are legitimate reasons to go to this effort. But I don't think it makes sense for the masses. Put another way, you might be an enthusiast who thinks a bit of one-off effort to get your system the way you want it is fine. That's cool. But it doesn't apply to an IT pro who's not thinking about their system. They're thinking of the 300 systems they have to support, all operated by people who don't know how to spell Linux. If you have a workforce who can happily switch between operating systems, then you are a very lucky person. For most of us, we call it a good day if our users manage to shut down their computers without setting fire to the building. When you work in IT, it's not about your personal preference, it's about what's best for the company. What's the best operating system for a few hundred people who already know how to use Windows and Microsoft Office, because that's what they used at school, at home, and in their old job? Mac? Nah, no, Windows. Those are your 5 reasons, but I promised you one more for fun. Predictably, that's gaming, assuming you have time to play games. I used to. Now I have kids. Most games are made for Windows. Proton is shaking things up, with the potential to run entire Steam libraries on Linux, but the games are still made for Windows and often run on Linux via workarounds. If they run. The fact is, most Linux desktop users who play games have a second partition running Windows for that reason. Windows is still the king of gaming. Those are a few reasons I think it's important to keep your Microsoft skills sharp, even if you're more of an open source kind of person. But remember, right tool for the job. Sometimes Microsoft don't make the right tool, and if you limit yourself to their products, you're missing out. That's why you should click on this video to learn about why you can't afford to ignore Linux either. Seriously, you should click it, it's a good video.